Welcome to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast, presented by FantasyGolfBag.com, your number one source for the most in-depth PGA Tour analysis in the daily fantasy and sports betting world. Each week, our experts will discuss everything you need to know, from the course preview and key stats to top plays, fades, and strategies. Whether golf betting, grinding out cash games, or playing for a big GPP win, our team has you covered. Let's get after it.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast. I am your host, Redkacheek, joined today by Axis, aka Fantasy Jesus, and we are going to be previewing the Northern Trust, the first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs, first leg of three, actually. And they'll be played here at Liberty National, right on the Hudson. So, exciting little turn of events, I guess, at the Wyndham Championship. Webb Simpson, I actually didn't even check Axis if he paid off his price tag, finishing second. But JT Poston coming through, and now we get to move on. And a lot of the same names we'll see popping up this week that we can dive into. But how was your week last week for the Wyndham?
I didn't watch a single shot of it, to be honest. I was up in no service country in northern Michigan on a golf outing. So I opened up DraftKings. I noticed I probably got back about 60% of entry fees and called it a solid weekend and moved on. Did well in some head-to-head betting, but yeah, honestly, I didn't watch a single shot of it, so I can't really say much about the Wyndham.
Yeah, I didn't watch much either. I just kind of stayed up to date with who was making moves and stuff like that. If you don't already, you can follow our Twitter alerts, our PGA Alerts Twitter account, and that's at PGA Alerts. And that's kind of how I follow most of the tournaments Thursday, Friday. I know most people already know I don't sweat too much on the golf front. Really, most DFS. I think people, after they've been playing for a while, they get desensitized a little bit, and you throw in your lineups, you kind of periodically check to see how you're doing, having an idea of where you're going to be. But we all know in golf, Thursday, Friday doesn't mean much. Last week, apparently Saturday didn't mean much. I went completely the wrong way on Sunday on FanDuel. Stayed pretty level, honestly, DraftKings wise. I don't know how that even works, but literally from Thursday through Sunday, I don't think my winnings changed at all. So, didn't watch too much, had some family things going on, and excited to kind of attack Liberty National. It's a weird golf course, though. Most guys have reviewed it and don't really like it. I haven't played it. I've played one course up there. I think I mentioned this last year on the podcast, and I'm desperate to get back. It's Bayonne Golf Club. It's in Bayonne, New Jersey, right across the Hudson. The other side of the city, the other side of New York City, and it's an awesome golf course. I haven't played Liberty National. I assumed it was going to be really nice. I'm sure the condition's nice, but most of the guys, man, they don't like the layout.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why. I haven't dove too deep into that. I did look up, so we pulled the stats from 2013, and they had quite a few long irons in, so maybe the guys just didn't like
getting kind of handcuffed off the tee.
Forced into that. I don't know. So approach wise from different ranges, it lines up similar to Torrey Pines South, Firestone, and Baltusrol. So I mean, they may not play exactly the same, but they should. Liberty National did compared to those as far as the percentage of shots from 175 plus. So if you want to take a look at those courses, who's done well there, you could take some information from that. But I anticipate, again, quite a few long approaches into the greens this week, more than usual.
Yeah, it's a really weird, so just kind of doing some kind of pre-search, I guess, on the golf course and how it's structured. I mean, you see the par 71, 7,300 yards. We'll go ahead and get into it instead of bouncing around a little bit. Let's go ahead. I'll go ahead and break down real quick on the macro elements of Liberty National, and then we'll get into these specifics as far as holes and stuff like that. Again, not a lot to talk about in the Wyndham. I know most people don't like hearing about the last event anyways. I don't blame you. It's in the past, and we'll readdress it next year. So let's go ahead and move forward, man. The Northern Trust is going to be played at Liberty National. It's a par 71, 7,370 yards will be the scorecard yardage. Obviously, that can fluctuate day to day. There's a par 3 that the scorecard has at 250 yards. That'll probably fluctuate down to about 210, 220. And then be tipped out around 250 one or two of the days. But the overall, like, the golf course is really pretty mediocre. So looking back in 2013, again, it's from looking at players that played in 2013, there's probably not a lot you can gather, but you can still look at the way the golf course played. Driving distance, driving accuracy, and putting all graded out kind of the middle half to easy third. So like right around 40 to 50, 50th place on the difficulty ranks for the PGA Tour that year. And green regulation was 8th most difficult that year. So certainly the greens, I think, like you said, having some longer shots into these holes contribute a lot to that. But green regulation, I think, will be big this week. Looking at those key approaches. So if you pull up the rolling stats and look at some of those numbers, and getting an idea of guys that really play well from those specific yardages, I think that's a big edge this week. Going from a course last week and even it's been a weird month and a half of events with the British Open, and you got the 2 alternate field events. So depending on how you're viewing your stats, if you're not viewing them from the Fantasy Golf Bag where we have those all kind of labeled, you could get a mixture of stats and see some really bad data comparing the other golfers to each other. But I think that's going to be key this week, green regulation, but looking at those key distances and the proximities for each player there. Like we said, 2013 was the last time it was played here as a stroke play event. Adam Scott won that year at 11 under par, so not very low compared to some of the prior events we've seen. And then we see some familiar names and then one lost name. Justin Rose, Tiger Woods, Gary Woodland all finished at 10 under, as well as Graham Dillette, who's a name we haven't heard in a while on the PGA Tour, coming back from injury. But kind of what I was getting at before we redirected and actually got on track. A lot of these holes, man, are pretty long. Starting off the week, I try to get an idea of quotes. You hear other people around the industry and how they're kind of describing the golf course, and they mention it is a less than driver golf course. They get handcuffed a little bit off the tee. They have to kind of lay back a bit. I know Gary Woodland said he doesn't hit a lot of drivers here and obviously played well back in 2013, finishing T2. But a lot of these par 4s are really long. Just starting on the back nine, you got a 496, so essentially 500 yards. 480, you got 490. Back to the front, you have 484, 474. So really long par 4s, and if people aren't hitting a lot of drivers, I think that really gives a lean to the longer hitters, which is probably why you saw guys at the top of the leaderboard in 2013, like an Adam Scott, a Gary Woodland, Tiger Woods. I think the distance is actually a sneaky attribute for me to look to this week, where guys we'll talk to the top of the leader or the top of the pricing, but Brooks obviously is playing well coming in here, but you look at a John Rahm, Roy McIlroy, those longer hitters we talk about on less than driver courses really do have an advantage this week, I think.
Yeah, I'll be looking at, sounds like very similar things, weighing ball striking heavily as usual, but also really looking at those longer iron players. You can look at the top of the lists of guys from 175 out and stuff, and it's Brooks, Rory, Rose, guys like that. Tiger's up there, so I think it'll really come into play. And if you look at who wins these FedEx Cup events too, it's typically relatively household names. I don't think there'll be too many surprises, so I don't know. I know DraftKings is a little different. You don't necessarily have to have the winner, but I don't think I'm going to be getting too cute this week in general. Again, it's one of the deepest fields all year just due to how it's set up. So you can find a lot of pretty solid golfers in the low ranges here and make some pretty creative lineups, I think.
Yeah, again, it's a limited field. Was it about 124 guys, I think? 123, something like that. I think 2 guys backed out, so I think we're at 122. But yeah, it'll be a normal cut to 70 in ties. Next week, we'll kind of proceed with the no-cut events as far as the FedEx Cup playoffs go. It'll be cut down to 70 and then down to 30 for the Tour Championship. And most likely the Tour Championship is going to be a bunch of showdowns, so brace yourself for that. And then we're right back to it with some European Tour golf, and then we'll hit the fall swing. So if you're new to DFS golf, if you've joined us this season and enjoyed it, it doesn't really end. It kicks right back up. Obviously, this is kind of like the high point of the European Tour season. I know you're way more familiar with it. You and Sky have done a lot of projects for us of late with the European Tour. And this is like was it Race to Dubai? Like, this is where they really get going. So, we lose the major season, and then when the FedEx Cup playoffs end, we get a little bit of the fall swing for the PGA Tour. But, man, the European Tour is going to be where it's at.
Yeah, so they'll kick up with a few more smaller events. Czech Masters. I think there's a Swedish event in there, the European Masters in Switzerland, which is always beautiful to watch on TV. And then they start really getting going heavy when PGA is done with a couple more Rolex Series events, and then with Race to Dubai late November. So plenty of golf.
Yep.
Plenty.
Can't wait. And then football. I mean, most people are going to play some football. Why not?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So we'll go ahead and dive into it, I think. Any other final thoughts on like the golf course itself? Again, I mean, I didn't really talk through kind of my key stats, I guess, but it's really pretty standard this week. Again, looking at approach, we should have like a keyword for that includes like the 3 primary stats that we look at every week. Because for me, it's always like approach. Off the tee does change, but green regulation I keep pretty constant as well. And I think, like you said, most of those are going to be pretty standard. You mentioned strokes gained ball striking. I think that's good. I did pull in the year-long strokes gained field differential that we have. I do want to like kind of give a lean to guys that have played well in these strength fields. So I'll be doing that. And then I probably just from a scoring aspect with these last couple of events, I've given a lean to weighted birdie or better and weighted bogey avoidance just to kind of weed out some guys that have not been achieving successful results on either fronts. But overall, pretty standard. I mean, again, we look at the golf course and how it played in 2013, then try to figure out which profile player would have done the best, where they finished, and then we try to kind of assess that for 2019. So that's where I stand. Again, it's bent grass greens, so if you want to look at some putting splits on bent, I know you were taking a peek at that. And there's a couple of names that really stand out, like Ricky Fowler. But, I mean, it's more of an eyeball thing for me. That's definitely not something I use as a concrete metric.
No, the sample sizes can get a little rough, but we do have a lot of bent grass rounds on there. So I think you can take away, I mean, guys definitely have preferred surfaces. You can hear them talk about it. So that doesn't always translate to playing better. But, I mean, like you mentioned Ricky, he's got 130 rounds for us over the last 5 years on bent grass. So you can look at it and be like, okay, that quarter stroke better per round is pretty believable. I mean, you might want to weight it a little difference based on if you want to regress it and all that fun stuff. But you can still look at it and know that, okay, it's safe to say Ricky putts better than usual on bent grass greens. So obviously, the more rounds, the better. The more rounds, it's believable. You may not want to believe the exact number will happen again. I'm not saying it's predictive, but again, you have that many rounds. Like a guy like Kisner has 165 rounds on bent grass greens. He's almost 0.2 strokes better per round, like that. So you can, all right, Kisner, you can at least expect him to probably putt well this week, if you want to look at it that way and use it. I don't use the exact number, but I kind of use it as, okay, 5-year sample size, this guy at least just doesn't fall off a cliff when he gets on these type of greens.
Yeah. It's always probably just a tiebreaker. I mean,
yeah, and that's all it really should be in my opinion, but
it could be a lean in the higher ranges, but I think maybe the cheaper guys, you could maybe give a bump to that. Like, if Keegan is looking good ball striking wise, maybe check his putting splits. But most of the elite guys, like even if they have a difference, it's not enough. It's not like, if Ricky's, gaining a quarter of a stroke on bent versus his other surfaces or his average putting. It's not like if he was putting on Bermuda and now, he's not even be considered because he just doesn't gain strokes putting. No, he's still elite, and same with Rahm, same with Rose, all those guys. So it's definitely more of an eyeball thing. I don't think it's down to an exact science because it is. I mean, we talk about it every week. The putting is variable. I think guys are good putters long term and even short term, and guys are bad putters in the same kind of time frames. But there's still surfaces where guys tend to shine, and that's something to consider. It's just not something you can easily just quantify.
No, but overall, good putters putt well on most surfaces. Bad putters putt poorly on most surfaces. So
agreed. The only other thing I'll note on the golf course before we kind of dive into some of the DraftKings pricing, they did play the 2017 President's Cup here. It's like a Ryder Cup format, so if you're not familiar, it's there's no stroke play. There's two mans. I don't know if they had alternate shot back then for the President's Cup, but it's a lot of best balls, two-man stuff, and it's all match play. Then the last day they'll do singles, so there's really nothing you can gather from that. I'll say the only thing that really caught my eye, that doesn't matter really, but Adam Scott did win his singles match, and then he won here in 2013, so apparently he does like this golf course. But outside of that, I don't think you can kind of gather much from the President's Cup, but I did want to note it was played here. So with that, man, let's dive in. Let's hit this the top range. We'll work our way down as usual. Terrible bunching with pricing in the 7K range. So I'll just kind of breaking it down. The 8K is not too bad. 10K is kind of normal, but you get like these pockets of 5, 6, 7 guys. A little bit more in the 8K, and then the 7K, there's like 3 dozen almost. So certainly people may find a lot of guys in that 7K range, and a balanced build may be the way to go. But like you said, most of in the FedEx Cup playoffs, we'll see these elite guys tend to shine, especially as it goes into these smaller fields next week in the Tour Championship. But, considering this field, I do like these guys up over 10K. This doesn't seem like a balanced build week for me personally, but we'll go ahead and kind of dive into some of these guys. It's Brooks Koepka coming in at 12K, Rory McIlroy 11.4, Dustin Johnson at 10.7, Jon Rahm at 10.4, and then Justin Thomas at 10K even. Kind of early leans. I've heard a lot of people talk about JT trending in the right direction, obviously off his European Tour little swing for the British Open. Brooks Koepka coming in with good form, Rory McIlroy coming in with good form outside of that miscut at the British Open, which most people have kind of crossed off the list as a fluky 2 days of golf. Really fluky Thursday, I guess. But man, the one guy that I keep kind of going back to, and I feel like this week, and it's probably the first time in a while, because like last week I didn't see a need to play Webb at 11.2. Jon Rahm to me is super interesting at 10.4. He's the one guy that we've seen come over here, had a pretty good run over in Europe before the British Open. I think he won the Irish Open. I think he skipped the Scottish Open and then played the British Open.
Yep.
Okay, and then he came back over here and played the St. Jude and finished 7th. So coming in with pretty good form. So I think TJ is going to get left behind. He's playing so bad, and I kind of am tempted to take the ownership lean, but he never really played well here in 2013 either. And he didn't play well at the 2017 President's Cup. But I think all these guys get a little bit of love, and I think Rahm's a little bit left out. So he's my favorite as of now for both coming in with good form. I think he grades out pretty similar, and no one's probably going to play him if they're going to go JT at 10 even and then go up to a Rory or maybe Brooks at 12.
Yeah, Brooks continues to come in pretty low owned, which is kind of astonishing. I guess people just still believe the major narrative. I think he was 9.5% owned at St. Jude-ish Or, I don't know. I used him there. It was less than 10 in most of the events. So I think that's intriguing to me again. Also very good with the long irons is Mr. Koepka. I don't really know what's going on with DJ. So at 10-7, I don't know, it's tempting if no one else is going to use him, but I think people will. It's not often he's the third most expensive. He's normally first or second in that price range. With you, I could play anybody above 10K. So if I was doing a single entry, that's where it would get really difficult to decide. I honestly might lean JT at 10K because he also rated out very well from 175 to 225 yardage. So I think I'd lean that way. It's very tough, though, between JT, Brooks, and Rory for a single entry. I don't mind Rahm, like I said. I don't mind DJ, but if I had to rank them up here, including price, I'd probably go JT, Brooks, Rory, Rahm, DJ. But very thin.
So Rahm would be last, or essentially Rahm would be your lowest guy outside of DJ.
Yep. Very thin margin. Very thin. Like I said, I'm trying to, all of these guys. I could literally play all of them, though. I would have no problem. If you made me like, hey, you're starting guys, you have to use Rahm from this range. All right, cool. No problem. But just trying to thin them out, that's the order I would put them in.
Yeah, I mean,
the price.
I just feel like JT is going to get a lot of love with his approach numbers coming in.
Yeah, he probably will. But.
I mean, it's super interesting. I do like him. It's just 12K price on Brooks, and then Rory 11.4. I mean, for reference, 11.2 was Webb's price last week, and that felt expensive. Now you got Brooks at 12. You have Rory over. So,
Webb was elite in that field, though.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like 11.2 was like tip top and was worth consideration.
I get it. I don't know. It's I guess it's a fear of Mr. Koepka.
And Sky likes him, so.
Oh yeah, Sky will be all in. Don't worry.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. It's probably every single week. I know we try to pick out guys up here that really stand out, and there's rarely does someone stand out as a great play over 10K, and rarely does someone stand out as a terrible play over 10K. I will say, I mean, DJ's leaning that way in this group. Like if you want to pick out any of those two, any one guy versus DJ in matchups, you'll probably lean towards the other guy in all those matchups. So it kind of weeds out DJ from your player pool if you're doing that 1v1 type of scenario when building your player pool. But yeah, I think you can make a case for all of them. When I was doing some research, Jon Rahm was one that was super interesting. That, I feel like this is a good golf course for him. Good with his long irons. Feel like he's pretty good off the tee, which is also something I know you mentioned last week. Off the tee was not very valuable from the golf course perspective. But like this week, I don't think off the tee would be valuable, but I think guys that do well off the tee throughout the season will have that advantage this week with the distance. Laying back off the tee if they're, we've seen DJ do that on less than driver courses. Obviously, Gary Woodland at Pebble Beach for the U.S. Open. So I think Jon Rahm fits that category for me. And like you said, I can make a case for all of them. That'll just be where I probably lean for most of my GPPs.
Yeah, so, makes sense.
Let's drop down into the 9K range. The one guy that was most interesting down here was Tiger at 9K even. But I'll let you lead off in this range. We have a good host of names. Justin Rose obviously finished second here back in 2013, coming in with pretty good form. 11th at the St. Jude, gained almost 6 strokes on approach. Gained a little bit putting, but seems to be coming in with good form. You got Webb there coming off his finish last week. His last couple finishes really. Cantley right there, Kuchar. This is a tough range, man. Where are you leaning here in the 9K?
So I've avoided playing Tiger most of the season, but 9K, it's kind of strange. I guess maybe I don't know. That Masters win might have taken a lot out of him mentally as far as the relief. Maybe that he hasn't played as well, obviously, since then. But when I pull up the long irons, I mean, I think he's probably second combined for me from the 175 to 225 range. And at 9K, I listed my comp courses, which I know is based off of only 1 year at Liberty National, but Firestone, Torrey Pines. So, I think some stars are lining up for Tiger to have a pretty solid week. The ball striking's been there all season for the most part, so hopefully he can figure out the putting. I mean, the putting hasn't even been terrible. It's just hasn't been great. So, yeah, I really like that price tag for Tiger at 9K, and I really like the price tag on Cantlay at 9.2K to just to pick out two guys quickly in that range. I think Cantlay and Tiger are definitely up there for me. And then, yeah, I don't know, it gets a little strange, but I think you can go back to Webb too at 9.4. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I think Webb has just continued to play consistently well. He hasn't really shied away in these deeper field events either. So,
yeah, it's tough. So what I'll probably end up doing in this range, definitely every week, and certainly in GPPs, to keep an eye on ownership to see if maybe one guy in this range gets more love than the next. I don't see that happening. There's just no one that really stands out. It's not like you got Cantlay here that, coming off the Memorial win or something with a bunch of scrubs around them that are really hit or miss. But like, this is a good range. The way I rank them, or at least they're coming in for me, Fleetwood, and then Cantlay, Webb Simpson, and then Tiger. So what's funny is Kuchar's the lowest for me here. Not sure why. He's a guy I played, I think, at the British Open, the Scottish Open. Like, man, I'm not sure why he's the lowest. Maybe he gets a little bit forgotten here. But, Tiger Woods, I think I'm going to have to play.
Yeah.
I mean, he burned me at the British Open. Should have listened to people when they start talking about the weather and being cold and stuff like that. And I was like, man, it's a good reason for why he would have problems, but it's not enough reason for me to fade him. And apparently that was the cause. Like 50-degree weather for his back is not ideal, apparently. But yeah, coming in, man, good form. I gotta lean some Tiger Woods here. Finished second back in 2013, and he actually, was it 2009? I think he had another good finish. Yeah, 2009, was it the Barclays at the time? He finished second as well.
Oh, 2009 was like Westchester or something.
No.
Oh, Wikipedia lied to me, I guess. But I know he finished second to, can't even remember the guy's name.
Slocum.
No, yeah.
Heath Slocum. Yeah, it's actually a pretty good leaderboard. Ernie Els up there, Tiger, Stricker, Freddie Jacobson, Webb Simpson. So yeah, I think Tiger, he'll be one that burns my bankroll somehow this week. So, and I think at a 9K price, there's a lot of flexibility too. It's not like we've seen him. Man, is this the first time he's been sub 10K like the entire season? I feel like, because he's been like 10-4.
Because that's probably what's kept me off of him most weeks. I would imagine is the price, because I haven't necessarily been afraid of how he had been playing.
We'll have to go pull it up. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think his only missed cut is the Open and the PGA, so. And you can chalk the Open up to, the conditions were less than ideal for him. That's for sure, so.
Yeah, coming in.
This could be the first time Tiger finds his way into a higher percentage of lineups than he has all season for me.
There we go. All right, man. Again, I think the 9K, just to kind of summarize there, it's a good bunch of guys. Looking a little bit of course history, I guess, with Webb and his recent form. I think he's a fantastic play, but Tiger's going to be very interesting. And then Fleetwood has been elite for a while. Finally seems to be gaining some of that consistency we saw last year, so I'll be having a fair share of that. And then Cantlay, I think, is just, he should be approaching like top 5 in the world, top 3 at some point, and it's got to be.
He should be priced about 10K in my opinion.
Yeah.
So he'll be extremely popular, I'm sure, this week.
All right, man. Let's hit the 8K range. We got the most popular guy in the field, hopefully, Colin Morikawa, coming in at 8,500, right in the mid range there. But you got Xander at 89, Adam Scott 88. The low end, you got Horschel coming off a good week, 8K even. Jordan Spieth down there sneaking around at 8K even. And then Patrick Reed, Jason Day, 81, 82. So in this range here, are you going to go, like, I don't see any reason to go get cute with Jordan Spieth, but are you going to play some Xander, Adam Scott kind of the high end, or is there someone else in here that's going to be more under the radar? Or is Morikawa is just chalk you're going to eat?
I mean, I've been playing Morikawa for a long time now, since he basically showed up. So I think I gave him the first 2 events, so U.S. Open and the next one, and then after that, been riding that streak. I think this is the week I'm going to back off due to, 1, potentially the popularity of it, and 2, he's been playing a lot of golf, and I know he's young, so it's probably easier to do that, but now he's venturing into an extremely deep field, and a lot of these guys are priming themselves for this time of year, so I think I'll roll the dice and I'll jump off the train for now, even though it's absolutely scorching. I will be on Xander Schauffele, though, at 8,900. Great with the long irons. I bet him at 33-1 this week as well. Another guy who seems to show up in the deep fields. I don't know if the price is necessarily wrong, but I'm very happy with it, and the ball striking's there. Around the green is solid. Putting is solid. Overall, Xander just has he doesn't necessarily always pop because he's not necessarily the top in any one stat, but he's very consistently good in the strokes gained stats. So I think I can get behind Xander. I'm going to skip the Adam Scott pain, though, this week.
Yeah?
Yeah.
His numbers look decent. I mean, the best.
They almost always do.
Yeah.
And I know he's got the win here. I don't know how much people are going to come back to him. Some of his longer iron numbers have been down this year compared to, he's normally known for being pretty good with the long irons. There's been a little bit of a stumble there. So I think the next guy I would jump down to would be Hideki Matsuyama at 8,400. Been pretty good with the long irons all year. Consistently great ball striker. Hopefully he can knock a few putts in this week. But 8,400 seems a little cheap for him. Probably because he just hasn't really won or scared it too much this year.
Yeah, I was pulling up the numbers for some of the lower guys. Yeah, Adam Scott, man, the longer irons they've been down. His overall proximity, so like you look through our extended approach numbers, have been elite in the last 10 tournaments. Really hit the ball pretty well at the St. Jude. Putted awful, obviously putted terrible at the Open. But I think I have to go back to him, man. It's ball striking for the entire year has been there. He had an 8th at the PGA, 2nd at Memorial, 7th at the U.S. Open. I think he's playing well, even with 2 kind of mediocre finishes. We'll say the British Open, we'll chalk it up to the putter. And the St. Jude, he didn't putt very well either. So I think from a ball striking standpoint, he's still playing well. Going to ride that wave on this course. The interesting ones, though, for sure, Hideki is probably going to get less love. He was just almost 10.5K like 2 weeks ago, and now he's coming in mid-8s. So definitely going to have some there. Bryson DeChambeau is really interesting. I know he's coming in with some kind of iffy form, but when you look through his approach shot distances for 175 to 200, which should be a high percentage of approach shots this week, he is 2nd in this range behind Colin Morikawa only. And that's in the last 10 tournaments. So I think Bryson, just from a approach standpoint, is really interesting. We've seen him play well during the playoffs before. I'll be probably having a few shares of Bryson. And then going to the low end, I'm not sure I can really get away from Patrick Reed or Billy Horschel. For some reason, Jason Day grades out better than both, but I have a tough time playing Jason Day if he's going to be popular. I haven't seen ownerships on him, but that's almost 100% of the reason why I play Jason Day is ownership leverage. Because nothing ever pops. Like statistically, you can't really tell me when he is trending up or down. It just ebbs and flows. But yeah, for sure, Patrick Reed coming off of another good week. I think his irons are still there unless you see something different, but there's no reason for me not to play him at 8,100 if I just played him last week at 98 or whatever he was.
Yeah, I didn't play Reed last week. This week, it'll be a tough decision for me. So Jason Day, I'm in the same boat. He always grades out well, and my overall model always up there. Just hasn't really been throwing it together too well the last few events here, so I'm not really sure what I'm going to do there. I probably will just ignore it. The guy that intrigues me and I don't really know what to do with will be Finau at 8,300. He grades out pretty solid for me overall. I haven't built a lineup yet, so I honestly don't know if I'm going to even be falling in this low eights. I have a feeling I'm going to be having to skip down, playing more guys from like the 7,600 and below. So this honestly could be a dead range for me. Not that I hate everybody here, just looking at it as we've been talking through it. Like I said, I haven't built one yet, but I have a feeling this is just going to be a dead range. Maybe for a lot of people though. So if you're making a lot of lineups, you could get a lot of ownership leverage here potentially.
Yeah, see, I think the opposite to a degree. I think a lot of people kind of look through this range and they see guys, even take a piece off the 9K range. You get like the low end Webb Simpson, Cantley, Kuchar, Woods. I think people lean that balanced approach and fill in their last two spots or something with this 8K range. Obviously, Adam Scott, he may be the guy that gets the ownership. I'm not sure, but I gotta see people, when they look through this pricing, which is almost like major pricing, they're going to have to feel more inclined to build around these like mid-tier guys so they don't have to scrape the bottom with, a Emiliano Grillo or something like that.
Yeah,
so
that's
we'll
fair.
see. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Again, it's such a weird part of the schedule with guys that, came over and played the St. Jude after the Open, skipped last week. Some guys didn't play the St. Jude, didn't play the British Open well, but came into the Open with good form. Like a lot of different question marks on different guys, but it's definitely going to be, especially as the playoffs go on. So like next week with 70 guys, it'll be almost like the Masters, and looking at ownership will be important because there's not so many guys you can go to. And this week's a smaller field, so keep an eye on that. It's not as easy as just playing your favorite players. That's a big part of it. You should live by your ideas behind the player pool and stuff like that. But getting into this range, if you see, Adam Scott's your favorite and he's getting up to 24, 26% for some reason, that's a pretty good reason to probably avoid him unless you want to play him in some single entry stuff and just try to match the ownership. So I'm with you here. You gonna skip out on Morikawa? You said that's your main guy. You're probably gonna
that'll be tough because that'll be tough. For now, I think I can ignore that because I'd still be happy playing Hideki. I think Hideki's a better golfer, obviously, right now. So you're gonna give me him 100 less. I'm okay with rolling the dice on maybe Colin having a little bit of a heat check, if you will, this week. So, and then there'll be no Bryson though. I think he's a head case and he gets in his own way. So, no Bryson for me this week either. That's for sure.
All right, I'll grab him at 4%, 6%.
Probably. Yeah. I'm sure Sky will be all over Jordan though, chasing those birdies. It's like a drug. Kid can't quit Spieth all of a sudden.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of thoughts on Spieth. I'm very confused at. We saw what he did last week or you may not have. I at least heard plenty of chatter.
Elite short game. That's what Jordan has.
Well, he chipped in.
That's all he has right now.
Yeah.
It's elite. I mean, his numbers are insane for the around the green and the putting. Like even over long sample sizes, everything else is just putrid. So enjoy that. If you want to play him, go ahead. But playing with fire.
All right, man. Let's avoid Jordan speed talk. People get heated really quickly. Let's hop down to the 7K. It's the 7K range here. We finally see Shane Lowry in his drunken stupor heading back from Ireland. We'll see how he plays this week. I'll probably avoid it. I mean, the numbers look good from the British Open, obviously, and the form going in, but I don't think I can hop back on after the British Open. I'm not sure if ownership will really increase, so it's not so much an ownership thing. But I honestly think he's been drunk for 2 straight weeks, and he might still be drunk. So, and that's awesome. I mean, enjoy the British Open. It's obviously an Irish tradition, and no harm, no foul there. I just won't be playing him. But Gary Woodland at 7,800 definitely stood out. He's got other personal, not issues, but personal events going on with the birth of his twins a couple weeks ago. So people have talked about baby swag. Obviously, he finished second here in 2013. Had a pretty good record at the President's Cup, actually, if I remember correctly. So I'm not afraid. At 7,800, it's a lot of opportunity, a lot of upside, I should say, and a lot of floor at that price. He's not priced up to 9K or something where you need an elite performance. So I think he's a great play in this limited field. Been on coming off of last week. Another guy that gained about 1.5 strokes on approach per round. Just under 9% of his shots inside of 9 feet. 50% of his shots inside of 24 feet last week. I don't always love kind of playing Benny on. I like playing him when he's cheaper. That's probably the better way to put it. When he gets up in this price range, it's tougher for me just because of his putting is not that good. Like he really struggles, and with the ball striking, it doesn't matter how good it is. You still need the putter to at least be decent. So I'll probably have some shares, but it's not going to be crazy. Again, he's another guy to watch for from last week with his good performance. Going down the list a little bit, you got Leishman there, Rafa Cabrera-Bello, Rory Sabatini, and Wolf, all above 7,500. They're interesting plays. Rafa's skipping this event, isn't he?
I couldn't tell you.
I think he is. I think he's having baby swag.
Interesting.
So I take that back. Do not play Rafa. So Rory Sabatini and Mark Leishman are 2 guys there that Leishman finished 3rd at the WGC St. Jude, gained almost 7 strokes on approach, coming off of the miscut at the Open, which I think a lot of the fantasy golf bag people played and ended up emceeing. But coming in with good form for the year. Like I said, going into that event, I think he only had 2 missed cuts in his last 52 weeks. Then he missed the cut at the Open. He bounced back to a 3rd place finish. I like Leishman quite a bit. He's a good scrapper, man. He's a sneaky elite player in these fields. He always seems to shine, particularly when he's paired with Tiger, which he's not this week. But I think every time, I think I saw a stat last year when he got paired with Tiger for the 3rd time that year. Every opening round, he shot 67 or better, which is nuts. So definitely going to have some Leishman. And then Rory Sabatini is really interesting, too. A guy that's been playing out of his mind this year. Got his Slovakian citizenship or whatever it was. Finished 6th at the Wyndham, 16th at the British Open. You look back at the run up to the U.S. Open, 5th at the Byron Nelson, 6th at Charles Schwab, 27th at Memorial. I mean, the dude's been playing unreal.
Wants to be in those Olympics, man.
He should get them. He should get in them.
Yeah.
I mean, last week he was 9K, something like that, 9,100, and he paid off at finishing 6th. Gained 4 strokes on approach. Sabatini has been super interesting. Not a lot of really close shots. So if you look through our extended approach numbers, only 18% inside of 12 feet. But you start going outside of that, he he was gaining a ton on the field strokes gained approach. He gained on the greens, the green and regulation numbers. He was gaining against the field over 50% inside of 24 feet. Man, he's been playing so solid. I'll be having a healthy number of shares kind of off of those two guys there in the high sevens.
My favorite golfers here, so when I just go to the overall model, which I tend to lean a little heavier on in these deeper fields, very thin margins here, but I went Woodland, Lowry, Leishman, and I'm with you. I'll be avoiding Lowry. Hopefully he is recovered. Hopefully he plays well. Wouldn't shock me, but at the same time, I mean, could just be shaking rust off this week. So I really like Gary as well. I bet Gary as well to win. I just like the price. The price is insane. So that was pretty much the play for Gary. And then Leishman, like you mentioned, he seems to be another guy, not as good as Xander at it, but another guy who's just very consistent across his game. And then when I pulled up the longer irons, his name popped in there too. So that's what led me to Mark. He's a guy I don't find myself playing often, but I can see him playing pretty well this week. And then when you get closer to the 7,500 range, 7,600 range, yeah, Sabatini just been unreal, and he keeps doing it. So what do you want to do there? I guess the intriguing one for me would be Ches, just because the ball striking all year has been outstanding. So I guess he's in. I could play some Ches this week at 7,600 as well. But
yeah,
those are the three that I'd probably lean on in this range, skipping the rest.
Yeah,
I mean, like you said, Ben An. I haven't really been a Ben An guy. I find myself playing him very sparingly, but yeah, crushed it last week, and then you can count on him faltering. But I mean, at his price, he doesn't need to win. So
we'll have to ask Hatchman. Does he ever back up a good finish? Like most of them are.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
He doesn't have tons of them. Seventh at the Valero, Texas, and then the RBC Heritage was a completely different golf course, not his style, and he emceed there. Normally, yeah, it's a little bit of a drop. There's not a lot of strings of good finishes. Even looking back at last year, he finished second at the RBC Canadian Open and then finished 57th at the WGC St. Jude. So, yeah, it's an interesting case for...
I mean, that makes sense, though, because of how bad of a putter he is. Like, you wouldn't expect him to really have a good run of events because he pretty much just finishes T10 when he has an average to semi-average putting week.
Yeah, he's usually a good for a salary saver, too. I mean, you think about low 7K, high 6K in deeper fields, and he's a good source of value due to his ball striking consistencies. But, like, he gained 3 strokes putting last week, finished third. Even if ball striking kind of maintains the same, now he's moving up to bent grass. We'll see if he has a little bit of a drop. So interesting case. It's a good point. I mean, we'll see what the ownership kind of bumps up for him too. Did you mention Sungjae at 7,500? Any thoughts on him? Because his approach numbers look good.
Kind of ignored the 7,500 guys.
He's 31% inside of 12 feet last week. I mean, coming off of some bad stretch of golf, gaining over a stroke on approach per round. I think he's really interesting on this type of golf course where precision should be important from what we're hearing.
Yeah, I get the intriguing one to me here is Ty Hatton, and again, he's a guy that I just haven't seemed to get right too often this year. He's come through recently, but I guess that it's always that price tag just sucks me in, and then I don't know. I don't have a lot of great reason to play him, but he seems to be a magnet for my lineups, and I have regretted it more often than not this year.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, I don't really have too many thoughts on this range, though, in particular. Like, you start getting down below them, it starts getting interesting with Garcia and even Kokrak at 7,400 with how well he hits his long irons.
The only thing I'll mention real quick on like the low 7K guys, I'll just touch on real fast. The only one I'm really interested in off of last week, there's 2 that are next to each other. One had a good finish, one had a terrible finish. And that's Adam Hadwin versus Siwoo Kim. Hadwin actually, his numbers last week, even through two rounds, were pretty solid with the irons. And I'm not afraid to hop back on that at 7,100. Siwoo, conversely, is 7,100. Good form, like had a good finish. His numbers look good, similar to Adam Hadwin, and people will probably go to him over Hadwin. So for me, in that low range, there's not a ton that stand out, just looking at last week's extended approach numbers. But Hadwin was one guy that, he did gain on approach, lost a little bit off the tee. I think he's a fine candidate to kind of bounce back this week.
Yeah, he was disappointing last week. I looked through my lineups.
Yeah.
And when I noticed that he had miscut, I was kind of disappointed at that. But yeah, like you said, the irons really weren't the problem. So, I mean,
no.
They weren't. Was it hit? Yeah, he just really wasn't. I don't know. It was weird. I did look through his approach numbers from last week and was kind of baffled, but it happens. So I don't know if I'm going to play him this week, but I'm not going to let last week wouldn't be why I don't play him, put it that way.
No, I'm just saying, I think it's an interesting case to play him with the numbers and the miscut. Yeah. Like the combination we saw with, Adam Long, we've seen with Svensson, like that's a interesting dynamic between those two priced next to each other. One burned a bunch of people, the other one, burned people the other way where they didn't play Siwoo, and he had one of his Siwoo weeks. So it's an interesting bounce back spot for Hadwin. So I'll definitely be having some shares. I wouldn't say I love him, but definitely his numbers look good from last week. It's not like you're grasping at straws, and has not played this event, so there's really no history to go off of, even though it's 7 years ago. But we can hop down to the 6K range. I'll kind of give you my high thoughts here in this area, and then I'll let you kind of finish off your final thoughts. But the one big one that stood out to me was Landry, 6,700. 60% of his shots inside of 24 feet last week, gained almost a shot and a half on approach. I mean, Landry grades out extremely well. He's only 6,700. He's not the longest guy, which I shouldn't say concerns me, but again, it's kind of in the back of my mind of a bump down. But when you start looking through the rest of these guys in this range, Landry stands out quite a bit. I ran a separate model. We talked about this last week with the last two events, and he stands out as the best in terms of birdie or better, green and regulation, weighted green and regulation, and strokes gained approach. And the other one down there is Sepp Straka. So I think Landry, he's probably going to be one of my highest owned this week. And again, it's a limited field, so the percentage of 6/6s should be high. Down here, I think, is really going to be critical.
Yeah, these low guys are always, like pulling hair, but the one who stands out, and it's just been over the entire season, he's done well for me. No, Troy Merritt at 6,300 just continues to stick the ball close all year. So he has continuously given himself chance after chance after chance to score. So I think at 6,300, he's someone you can sprinkle in. I know Charlie Hoffman has burned everybody of late, but again, the long irons are pretty solid, and now you're getting him at 6,500, and most people have been burned by him at much higher salary. I think he could be sprinkled in. Like it's pretty gross as usual down here, so I mean, pick your poison. But down here, I want guys who are gonna give themselves a chance to score. Like you need the points, so I'm not gonna play someone if I don't think they're gonna even give themselves opportunities to score. So those are the two that I guess kind of stuck out. Roger Sloan has been putting the ball very close of late as well. I don't know if some people have been on him. I've seen on
Hello
golf Twitter.
Hello.
But, yep, including you. So that's another guy you can go back to. It's really sparse down here for me. And then Johnny Vegas is a guy whose long irons have been pretty solid over the season. He really hasn't done much else for me, but he popped in that category. So I think when you get down here, I think we talked about it before the pod, like a lot of these guys, they're priced this way for a reason. They're not good at everything. So I guess pick the key stat you really want to hone in on and find guys who are good at that stat you think will help them score this week or succeed.
Yeah. Yeah, there's two, like on the low end, there's really not a ton of guys you're never going to love the low end guys, I should say. But there's two guys in this range, in the high 6K range that I'll mention, and that'll probably be my final thoughts in this tier, but it's both Taylors. Nick Taylor coming off of a ton of made cuts. He missed it last week. I think it was on the number or just outside. Playing extremely well. I think he's been around 68% green and regulation. And then Vaughn Taylor, likewise, around 67% green and regulation. You start looking at more recent form. So like Nick Taylor, for example, last week was the lowest of his last 3 events at 72% green and regulation. Barbasol, John Deere, easier courses, but he was like 80 to 86% green and regulation numbers, 70% driving accuracy. Like from a ball striking standpoint, if the strokes gain approach numbers don't capture it, looking at like the weighted green and regulation, and you could look at weighted driving accuracy too, but he's been doing work, man. I was kind of bummed he missed the cut last week. He had some problems with his luggage not getting there until like late Tuesday, but I'm not going to blame him missing the cut on that. But he's still playing well. A missed cut doesn't mean you're playing bad. It means you missed one putt, or you had one bad hole, whatever it is. But you start looking down at the statistical elements underneath that performance, and you're saying like, that missed cut wasn't really a missed cut. I mean, you're looking through recent form, you're not going to see a 15th place finish and think he's a great play. But he's not playing worse than he was, 2 weeks ago. He just didn't make the cut, and we don't know where he would have finished. And then the same kind of point with Vaughn Taylor. So again, both Taylors, he hit 79% of his greens last week. He did make the cut. He finished 39th, so not a great finish. He did have all 4 rounds in the 60s. And then his last 3 events outside of that, John Deere, Rocket Mortgage, and Travelers, was 79%, 76%, 72%. Very steady. So like, if you need a guy that's probably going to make the cut or at least has a good chance to be steady, those two are the ones to do it. Birdie or better is not the best. Like they're very steady. They just don't make a ton of birdies. But I still like them on this tougher golf course where winning score should be 10 to 12 under par.
Yeah, my overall model, Vaughn Taylor, he is my highest ranked guy in the 6K range, actually. So
yeah,
I can get behind Vaughn Taylor again this week.
Alrighty. Anyone at the very, very low end besides Troy Merritt? I don't think I have anyone. I think a couple people popped last week for a round or two, but nothing really that stood out a lot. I guess, was it Kazire that Sky mentioned? From St. Jude, was that it? Something he mentioned on Kazire, but I could have been wrong.
I don't know, probably just Merritt or Sloan, if you really wanted. Or you could take the ball striking god Corey Connors and just plug your nose when he gets around the green. But no, I'd rather play Troy Merritt or sorry, who did I just brain fart on? Sloan. Those would probably be the two from way down there for me.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, I haven't created the listener league yet, so I'll be dropping it when you guys hear this podcast. You should be able to find the link in the description of the video or the podcast, wherever you're listening to the show. As always, if you leave us a rating and a review, we always appreciate it. If you're on YouTube, you can like and subscribe, and then you could also find us on iTunes if you wish, and you can always get that on demand. So, any final thoughts? There's I know we've been in a whirlwind the last couple weeks with the different, the Senior British Open, the Women's British Open. So as far as like the fantasy golf bag, the betting card, it's been loaded with triples every single week. Any final thoughts on this week, or like kind of looking forward to the finals of the FedEx Cup playoffs?
No, on a betting front, I'm not getting cute this week. I think I made 3 bets so far, and it'll probably be the only 3 PGA side. I took Cantlay at 25, Xander 33, and Gary 66. I think Sky might have actually
70.
Texted me when he was 70. Yeah. Can't remember which one I got though.
I think he's still 65.
Yeah, so those will be the three. I'm not going to get too cute there. There'll be some head-to-heads out there, and I'll do a better job of getting the card out. We've been putting it out on Twitter. It'll be up on the site this week, though, as well. There's just been a lot going on. So I like this time of year. I know it sucks that it's kind of winding down, but I enjoy these deep fields. I enjoy seeing, all the big names in the same field. It's not quite the major feel, obviously, but it can make for some entertaining golf. So I'm ready for it. And then the Euro Tour kicks back up pretty shortly, so we'll be neck deep in that as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. If you haven't already, you can find the extended approach numbers. Those were our new stats that we released last week. We've been using for a while for all of our content, but now they're fully published. So if you're a member now, you can download, use them to your disposal. Find a lot of gyms like Svensson and Long, even though Svensson faded, and not taking any victory laps on that. But it's a very good way to find these lower price guys. Obviously going to be low ownership and a lot of upside. Even safer. I mean, they could just be potentially safer due to looking at some of these EAP numbers. So I think that'll about do it, guys. I appreciate you all tuning in to the Fantasy Golf Bag podcast. You can find us again Wednesday night for the Fantasy Golf Bag live stream, and that'll be on Twitch at twitch.tv/Redkacheek. And Jacob should be on with me, and we'll do our final thoughts for the Northern Trust. And hopefully we have a couple guys in the FGWC. So hopefully good luck to all you and take home the 200K. And I think that'll about do it, guys. So good luck this week in your contests. We'll see you later this week for the live stream. And have a good rest of your week researching for the Northern Trust. See ya.